Can the Bucks make a run at the top of the conference? What happens to the Celtics without Hayward? Have the Warriors ruined the NBA? The only question left is, say it with me, you in? Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown Podcast. I am pleased to bring on the show today Tim Bontemps, who is a national NBA writer for the Washington Post and has been around for a long time covering the ins and outs of the NBA. So, Tim, I can't wait to get up and start talking about some NBA stuff with you.
Hey, man, I'm really happy to be on with you, Nick, and you obviously been killing it with the with the breakdowns for a while now. So I'm thrilled to be on the pod, and thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. I mean, listen, I there's nothing like toiling away by yourself in a room for hours and hours staring at footage, right? So
listen, I give you. We've only met once or twice in person, so I haven't really said this to you, but I give you a ton of credit for the work you do for just that reason. It's really hard. Like, it is hard to sit by yourself and grind through videos and like explainers and do that kind of stuff. So I give you a lot of credit. And part of the reason I enjoy this job so much is that I'm not by myself a lot. I mean, obviously writing, the art of actually writing the stories that I write, it can be, you're sitting in a room by yourself and you got to grind through it. But a lot of my job is, essentially just talking to people. And talking to people about basketball, which I really enjoy. Obviously you're doing that too, but a lot of the stuff that you're doing is it's a lot of individual on the computer, on the video, walking people through stuff, and that's tough to do. So I give you a lot of credit for doing that.
Thank you. I mean, for sure, it's people always ask me, wow, like you must be going all the games, and it's like, you know what? I much prefer to be in my studio where I can jump back 10 seconds and look at the play right away. I don't know about you, but like I've done interviews pre-game, and they're like way too intense. No one wants to do them. They're all like psyched for the game, and then after the game, all they want to do is get the hell out of there. So I don't know. Like I much prefer like maybe the shoot arounds where they're a lot more like relaxed. You can get some better stuff. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean it depends, right, on what part of the job I'm doing. Like obviously for your stuff, I totally agree. I mean it's hard. It's always going to be very hard to get kind of into intricate, detailed stuff at a pre or post game session, unless you're asking about a specific play that happened in a game you want a guy to talk about. Just because, like you said, the setting is different. Like obviously on Tuesday, if I'm at like when I was at Cavs Celtics, you're writing about everything that's going on with Kyrie that night, at least before the Gordon Hayward injury. Obviously your goals are a little different, but yeah, like I'm in Milwaukee today. I talked to Giannis who's had a cool ball practice, and we're going to talk about that later. And like, yeah, if you get a guy on a practice day or at a shoot around and you get some time with them, everybody is a lot more relaxed because you're not thinking necessarily about the game right then. You kind of just get a workout in, you're hanging out. So yeah, if you want some extra time with somebody to try to get into some, in-depth topics of any kind, if you can get, that shoot around access or a practice access, it gives you a chance to really, get a chance to kind of talk to somebody in a more relaxed setting than you would if they're thinking about getting ready for a game or they're either coming off of winning a game or losing one.
For sure. Well, speaking of that, it's a good segue to talk a little bit about Giannis because certainly I don't know if I was on an island, but I know I got some strange looks across Twitter when I was saying that the Bucks could be third in the conference. Why not jump over perhaps Toronto or Washington and take that spot? And so you're hanging around there today. What's the feeling out there? What do you think about that? Is that crazy?
I would have said the Bucks could finish ahead of the Celtics. I even before the Gordon Hayward injury, I was skeptical that the Celtics are going to put things together fast enough to be a top 3 seed in the East. I mean, you know as well as anybody from being a coach, it takes a while to put a bunch of new pieces together, and I think people had underrated just how much the Celtics had turned over their roster. I mean, they had 4 new starters this year. They had, I think, 9 or 10 or maybe 11 new players on the. I mean, they just had a ton of new pieces to fit in, and on top of that, they also really thinned out their roster. I mean, they were going to come into the season relying on a 19-year-old and Jason Tatum, a 20-year-old and Jaylen Brown. They were going to need guys like Semi Ojeleye to give him some minutes. Maybe Daniel Tice was going to have to play some because they really only have Aaron Baines and Al Horford as true bigs. They're going to need Terry Rozier to give him big minutes as a backup point guard, and that's before Kyrie potentially misses any time, like he probably will. So you start to add that stuff together. I thought they were going to take a step back, but to get back to your question about the Bucks, the Bucks have some issues, but they've got Giannis, and I think anybody that wants to go all in on Giannis is making a smart bet. I mean, as a 6'11" guy with hands as big as my torso, I think. I mean, he can make plays and do things athletically that really only LeBron can do. And he in a way, only really like LeBron can he kind of impact the game in every single facet. Even a guy like Kevin Durant, for as good as Durant is, he doesn't have the same kind of like explosive ability to destroy a game the way Giannis can. And I mean, you saw that last night. We're talking Thursday. You saw that Wednesday in the game in Boston. I mean, he had 37 and 13. And even when I talked to him today, he was like, "Yeah, I could have played better. I made a couple mistakes. I could have been smarter here and there." And the guy had 37 and 13, I think, and 3 and 3. I mean, he can put up numbers that nobody else can. So yeah, I think that the Bucks can certainly be in the mix for the 3rd seed. I think now with Boston to be out of the picture for a top 4 seed, I think Washington's the pretty clear favorite to be number 2. But I think that, to me, if you have to pick a team out of the Bucks, the Raptors, the Celtics, the Pistons, and the Heat, maybe even the Hornets and Sixers, I mean, to me, I think if you want to say Giannis is going to carry these guys to high 40s, low 50s and get them that 3rd seed, I certainly think that's a good bet to me.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing, though. I think that people are writing off the Celtics. I know they're 0-2 now, and they have to they're reeling about with the loss of Hayward. But I don't know. I got to tell you, when you watch these young guys, they're good and they're going to be better. I mean, Jaylen Brown to me is already a guy who is going to be ready to step up. And Tatum looks like he's got, he just needs about 20 games under his belt. So, you know what I mean? I almost feel like they still have enough pieces to really do some damage.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not trying to say that the Celtics are going to win 25 games on if Gordon Hayward is hurt. But I do think that Tatum and Brown are going to be good. But as you know, trying to have 19 and 20-year-olds be part of winning basketball in the NBA is really hard. And those guys are probably going to have rough stretches this season. Kyrie is almost certainly going to miss some time because he always does. I don't think he's ever played more than 75 games in a season. I think he'll, and look, if he's playing 39 or 40 minutes every game and he's played that back-to-back nights, that's not going to end well. Like he probably shouldn't be playing more than 32, 33 minutes, in my opinion, with the amount of injuries he's had in the past already. Mm-hmm. So I just think that their margin for error is very slim. Like if you told me that Kyrie was playing 80 games and Horford was playing 80 games and Brown and Tatum play like this all season, then yeah, they could maybe hang around that 3, 4, 5 area. But I just think it's more likely that some of those young guys have periods of regression and Kyrie misses 10 or 15 games, and they probably settle in more as like a 6 seed or a 7 seed.
Okay.
Well, I just think, if you just look at their roster, they're just not very deep.
Yeah.
And if you take away, I think most people agreed that the 55 win projection for them in the over/under was pretty aggressive, right?
Oh, with Hayward though?
No. Well, with him, I think people thought, if you're a 48 win team last year and you add Kyrie and Hayward, I thought 55 was aggressive. But let's say they're a true 53 to 55 win team.
Okay. I
think Gordon Hayward's an 8 to 10 win player. So that drops you from there to 40 to 45 wins. Yeah. And if you're a 45 win team, you're probably a 5 or 6 or 7 seed, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. That's I'm much more in the irrationally exuberant part of my season, so I could see what you mean. That's true. We'll have to find out. I suppose.
I also was down more on Boston, I think, than most people were to begin with. So, right. I think that also should be factored in. But I just think Gordon Hayward, I thought, was their best player. I mean, I think he's a better player than Kyrie Irving. So if you lose your best player and you're a team that didn't have a ton of depth as it was, it's just hard to come back from that. So and they have a terrific coach in Brad Stevens. He'll get the most out of that roster. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was going to take them a while to gel just to fit all these new pieces in. But now, you got Abdel Nader playing right off the bench last night. You got Daniel Tice and Semi Ojeleye playing big minutes. Like they just have a lot of work to do to figure out what the rotation's even going to look like now. Because this, it's like you spend all the last 4 months, kind of planning, okay, we're going to have this team built around Gordon. And then you get Kyrie. It's like, okay, we got 2 months to figure out how we're going to play Kyrie and Gordon together and make this work. And then 5 minutes into the season, every plan you had gets thrown out the window. And that's just really hard to come back from. And it's tough too, because as you know, once you get into the NBA season, even when you have a young team like they do, you're not practicing that much. Mm-hmm. You're playing generally every other day. You can get some work in on the off days, but it's hard. So, it's going to be a lot for them to deal with. So I still think they're going to be good. I think they'll probably make the playoffs. Assuming everybody's healthy, they will make the playoffs. And they could be a real tough out for somebody in the first round. But I just think there's going to be some real growing pains for them, both with those young guys and trying to figure out what they actually are now that they don't have Gordon anymore.
Okay, fair. That all great points, and I'll definitely have to pump my brakes a little bit because I feel like you're right. There are versions of the Matrix where they do get it to work, and Baines works out really nicely, and Rozier makes a nice stride or two, and then Brown continues to do well, getting his 17, 18 points. Yep. But you're right. It is a fine line. And I think Tatum ends up being the guy who becomes really important. And then if Morris can come back and give them what they hope he can give them,
Right. He'll help a lot.
Yeah. So there's things there. And again, like what you said about Stevens, I mean, it can't be said enough. Just what he gets absolutely the most out of his teams. It's crazy.
He's such a good coach.
Yeah.
Such a good coach. I mean, I remember I covered him in the NCAA tournament in 2011, the year after Gordon left, when they went back to the Final Four. And I covered their regional in Washington, the first 2 games. I was working at the New York Post then, but the regional was in D.C. And they won 2 games there, beat the number 1 seeded Pitt Panthers that year. And you could just see then, like every time they had an out-of-timeout play, he would get a layup for his team. Or a wide open 3. Like every single time, they either got a layup or a wide open shot. And for any fans who are wondering, like, if a coach is good, whether it's in college or the NBA, just that is to me the best way to kind of judge how good a coach is in game. It's just watch and see what they do in out of timeout situations. Because the good coaches get guys in good positions out of timeouts. You look at any team, those are the situations that really allow guys to stand out, because it's like, all right, I got to draw something up on the fly and figure out a play that's going to work, that we can get a bucket here. And the teams that can do that, like those are the plays that can can really determine whether you win or lose a game down the end of the final few minutes of a game. You need them to get a bucket. If you can get one or not, that can be the difference between winning and losing. So I think Brad's a terrific coach. And look, I agree too that to me, Brown and Tatum are the swing guys. If those guys are immediately legit and Jaylen Brown becomes a most improved candidate and Jason Tatum is an arguable Rookie of the Year candidate, and they're really, really good, then I could look wrong, and maybe they win the high 40s and still get a top 4 seed.
Yeah.
I'm just being more conservative on it and thinking that they're probably going to take some time. But look, if Gordon can come back healthy, obviously you never want him to get hurt, and hopefully he is coming back and be totally fine. But it could be a blessing in disguise long term for the Celtics if he is able to come back and be okay, because if you give Tatum and Brown just free reign here for the next 6 months, it's going to be pretty good for their development. And long term, you could end up, looking at a team that's much deeper than maybe it would have been if they had Gordon out there being, the all-star he was going to be this season. For
sure. And, I'm always stressing to coaches about the out-of-bounds plays, out-of-timeout plays and out-of-bounds plays, because usually in a season, at probably every level, they spend, a couple minutes, here's a couple plays you want to run. They don't really focus on it, when in fact, you can you can get eight points a game out of that if you run them right, and that's the difference between winning and losing. And the thing that's interesting about this is that, the play that Hayward got hurt was an out-of-timeout play that Stevens drew up, another beauty of a play. I don't mean that, unfortunately, that gets lost where they set a cross screen with Horford for Hayward. It gets Crowder completely out of position, and he backdoors, and that was definitely the call. Like, fake that way and cut backdoor. Now, the interesting thing is that the only other guy on the court that was smart enough to be able to read that is LeBron
right.
James. And I would argue that, like, if he hadn't done that, like, Hayward isn't hurt, because that was sort of the end of the collision there that LeBron has up on top to him that got him so out of position to fall. And
right.
You know what I mean? It's almost like it was kind of crazy. Like, most other players,
if they're playing any other team in the league, to your point, if they're playing any other team in the league, maybe, except for maybe Golden State with a guy like Draymond Green out there, but like virtually any other team in the league, that's a dunk.
Right.
And like nobody even sees it coming. But LeBron is so preternatural on the court that he snuffed it out and went up and tipped it away. And obviously, like you said, not like LeBron did anything wrong. It just was tragically unfortunate that they, kind of bumped into each other a little bit. And probably if Gordon falls down there a million times, probably every single other time, he just pops up and runs down the court. But he just happened to get caught in the wrong spot. But yeah, like you're right. If they're playing any other team, that's just a dunk. And obviously Gordon's fine, and there's not even a thought about it.
Right, except for Draymond. Yeah, you're right. There's the two players in the league that could actually see that and then actually have the ability to make the play, because LeBron's man was setting the pin down on the other side on the left side of the floor, and that was the strong side. Like, that's the side where you're like, I gotta say my man. He's right there. So it really was too bad. And again, it's just sort of like, sometimes these things just happen and they're so freak, and it's too bad. But as I was breaking this stuff down, you start to see more and more of like, if he just wasn't so good at reading that, or something.
You are 100% right. It is incredible that, for a guy, for all the things that people talk about LeBron, that's not one they talk about enough. Mm-hmm. It's just how unbelievably smart he is on a basketball court, and off it too, when you see how he conducts himself. But it just like his ability to see stuff as it happens, and that, to circle back to Giannis, that's the thing that's, to me, like, you see him growing in that kind of way every year too, and it's going to be so much fun to watch him for the next decade or so, because people forget the guy is 22 years old. He's going to be 23 in December. Like, it's unbelievable how young and good this guy is. And to me, it's just the sky is the absolute limit for him. So it's going to be very fun to watch him grow.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this. You were in Detroit before you were in Milwaukee, right?
Yeah, I was in Detroit for Pistons Hornets for their opener last night before driving out here.
So my question is, when an owner comes out to the press and tells them that his coach he has faith in his coach, when does the coach get fired? Are we on is this a timeline here? Right? Isn't that how it happens?
Is this about Tom Gore saying that about Stan?
Yeah. Did you hear him say it? Were you there when he said that?
I was not actually in the press conference when he said it. I think the situation there is a little different than normal, in that I think the Pistons are fascinating. I wrote about them. I wrote about them today, and I just think they're in a really interesting position. 2 years ago, they went 44 games. They look like an up-and-coming team in the league and in the East. They got Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson, nice pick-and-roll combo. They steal Tobias Harris from the Magic. They draft Stanley Johnson, who's an interesting combo forward, can play defense and handle the ball. Like, there's a lot of stuff to be intrigued by, right? Mm-hmm. Then last year, they take a step back. Reggie Jackson has some knee issues early in training camp. He misses 2 months. He comes back. He's a mess. There's infighting in the team. There's team meetings. Him and Andre Drummond never get on the same page. They both don't look like themselves all season. There's just a series of internal issues. They win 37 games. They miss the playoffs. Things are going to hell. What are we going to do? If that had happened in reverse, if they'd won 37 games and then 44, so it Stan's first 3 years, they go 32, 37, 44, people are thinking, hey, the Pistons are looking great. Instead, they go 32, 44, 37, and now it's like, well, where is the team going? So, and then they make the swap. They don't re-sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They trade for Avery Bradley. I mean, they're just in a really interesting position to me because, everybody in Detroit will tell you the same thing. Their entire season will come down to that Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond pick and roll. And if those guys are good again, they could win 44, 45, 46 games and be somewhere in the middle of the East and be really solid. And if Reggie doesn't get back to what he was 2 years ago or close, or if Andre is disinterested, or both, then they could win 36, 37 games again. And then you go into next offseason, you go, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to blow this up? Are we going to trade Andre? Are we going to trade Reggie? What are we going to do? I don't really think that Stan is in any kind of jeopardy there. He's obviously got the dual title. Jeff Bauer is a very good GM, I think, that's in charge there. I think if you look at Detroit's personnel moves, I think they've largely done a really good job. I mean, I think they've made some great trades. And when you consider they've never had a pick higher than 8 with this whole core that they have, it's not like they've had the opportunity to get a top 5 talent to kind of be the centerpiece there. So it's a really interesting mix. I actually think they're going to be okay. I watched them last night. Reggie and Andre looked really good. Reggie in particular in the second half looked good, which I thought was the most encouraging thing. Andre Drummond's free throws actually look very good now. He looks like a light has gone on. I mean, he wasn't pinging them off the backboard anymore. They look like, a normal free throw shooter shooting them. So that was encouraging. So I think they're low key one of the more intriguing and fascinating teams in the league this season. Just because, like you said, a lot of people are kind of assuming they're going to be terrible, and because people are just kind of out on them after last year. And then does that mean Stan gets his president title stripped? Does that mean they clean house? Does that mean they trade everybody? Like, what are they going to do? And so I am really curious to see how things play out. But I'm actually kind of bullish on them, and I think they're going to wind up being okay this season.
Wow, definitely a forgotten team in the East, as is everybody in the East who was not playing in Cleveland, apparently, or maybe Boston.
I think you can argue they're one of the most irrelevant teams in the league coming into the season. Like, who was talking about the Pistons?
Yeah.
Nobody, right? Them, the Magic, the Pacers. Like, some teams are complete dysfunctional train wrecks, like the Knicks, right, or the Bulls. There's teams like the Nets and the Hawks that are trying to rebuild. But then, like those other teams, like they're just kind of like, well, who are they? Well, they're just kind of there.
Yeah.
And the Pistons kind of fall into that category.
Speaking of the Bulls for a second, because, I haven't been in my timeline as much in the last few days, busy working, but, the whole Mirotic thing came up, and I don't know, is it completely mysterious still, or do you have any information that you can breaking news on B-Ball Breakdown for us that no one else knows about, that what happened with that?
Well, it's been pretty well discussed, so I don't know if I have any inside information that nobody knows about. But, look, these were two guys who have had issues for a while, who were getting into it in practice. And, you've been in plenty of practices. Guys get into it at practice. It's just kind of the way all sports work. And I think this just happened to be one of those situations where guys got into it, and it just so happened to go a step too far. And, Bobby Portis takes a swing at Mirotic and catches him in the right spot. And then it's, from all indications, it's a 2-hit fight. The guy his hand hits his face and his face hits the floor. And he obviously suffers some unfortunate injuries and is going to be out for a couple of months. And, it's just a very bizarre situation, because I think anybody who's been around sports knows that this kind of thing happens a lot. Like there's the legendary story of Michael Jordan taking a swing and popping Steve Kerr in the face at a practice once.
Yeah.
But the difference was Steve Kerr didn't break a bunch of bones in his face and be out for 2 months. Whereas Bobby Portis did that to Mirotic. So it's obviously a very bizarre situation. And for a Bulls team that has had a rough few months and is certainly looking at being, in my opinion, a dreadful team this season, that was not the way they wanted to enter the season, having an incident like that happen.
When you say that they had a history, I suppose, I was unaware of that. What is the beef? Is it the same position they're competing for playing time? Like, what's that about?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was public before, like, the last couple days, but they've just been battling for weeks now at camp, and I think just some friction had built up. But, they're fighting for playing time. They're playing against each other every day. I think it was just kind of one of those one of those things. Not that like they had years-long beef or anything.
Okay.
I think it was just a frustration. You just playing against the same guy every day. It's training camp, preseason, like stuff had just built up. And like I said, obviously it manifests itself in an unfortunate way for everybody involved.
Right, because I feel like a lot of times coaches would say, "Oh, this is great. They're really competing and they're really getting into it." But it is a fine line. And I imagine like football is probably the worst of that. They must be fights every half an hour in a football practice. I imagine.
Yeah. When I used to I've covered the NFL in the past, and when you cover training camp at the NFL, there's at least a fight a day.
Yeah.
And and they're like, and it's like, yeah, like you guys grab each other for a minute, and then there's like a big pile. It's like, all right, just stop. It's like that, and that's what happens in the NBA too, or in basketball. Like guys will get into it in practice, and there'll be some yelling, and you separate them for a minute, and then you kind of go on with your day, right? This just happened to be a situation that got a step farther than that, and obviously the ramifications of that are going to be felt for some time now.
Absolutely. Let's move over to the Warriors for a second, because they dropped their first game. I suspect you had a chance to see that.
I did.
What are your thoughts about that? And are we going to all get on the Kerr, bandwagon of the weird lineups that he keeps throwing out there, and what's motivating him to do that?
No, I'm not going to get on any bandwagon other than the bandwagon of the Warriors barely lost to an awesome team and gave up a lead in doing so when one of their best players got hurt in the game. Another key rotation player didn't play in the game, and they were all out of shape. So I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be just fine. I think Steve Kerr was playing weird rotations because his guys are out of gas and out of shape because they haven't really practiced in a month. They went to China and practiced twice. They came back and then basically practiced for 2 days. They took one day off. The next day they came in. They're like, well, we can't even do anything today. Our guys are worthless. So, I think they're in a situation where they don't care about the regular season at all. And even still, you look at how that game went, they were the better team for the majority of the game anyway. And, just kind of let it slip late. And that was with, having conditioning issues and still trying to figure out rotations and still trying to get guys into the right conditioning. So
yeah, and Steph Curry.
I don't really take anything.
Yeah, like Steph was in foul trouble too, and it was. You're right. You know what?
Right. Yes. Right. Yeah. Steph was in foul trouble, and that screwed the rotation up too. I mean, look, last year they lost to the Spurs by 40 points at home in the opener, and people were saying, "Oh, Steph's going to leave, and Kevin's going to leave, and this isn't going to work, and there's going to be." And they won. I think they went 5-4 in their first 9 games, or 5-3 or something, and then they won 67 games. Mm-hmm. So I think that this season's going to go in virtually the same manner, where maybe there's a little bit of a sluggish start, but they have 12 guys back. The 3 guys that are new are all better than the guys they replaced. Mm-hmm. They're to use a Joe Lacob phrase, they're light years ahead of everybody else. And I just think that if they stay healthy, I think they're going to waltz to another championship. So no, I'm certainly not sounding any alarm bells about one close loss to maybe the second best team in the league.
Sure. And by the way, no question. Like in the middle of that game, when they had that big lead, I was thinking, you know what, they could win 75 games if they really wanted to do it. Like that's how good they feel. And
they still can, even though they screwed that game up. They still can if they decide they want to. I'm sure they won't, but they could. I mean, they're that much better than everybody else. It's scary.
It is scary, and you know what? Would you consider this a team? I know they signed KD, and then I know they traded for Iggy, but they kind of did this for the draft with Curry and Clay and Draymond. Is this what Michael Jordan's complaining about when they're talking about super teams? Because it feels like a lot of it was grassroots built.
I mean, I think Michael Jordan was just being grumpy, honestly. Okay. Look, I've said this. I was talking to Michael Wilbon about this the other day at the game. If Michael Jordan could have gone and teamed up with Charles Barkley and Mike and Patrick Ewing in 1991 or 1990 before he won anything, do you think he would have done that? I think he would have done that. So, the guys today have opportunities to do things that guys back then did not. The contract situations are far different. Guys have far more ability to be in charge of their own destiny than they did back then, in part because of guys like Michael and what they did for the sport in terms of elevating it to another level financially. But, yeah, I just think that he can be grumpy and say, yeah, back in my day, guys wouldn't team up, but guys also didn't have the chance to really team up before. Mm-hmm. And to your point, I mean, the Warriors signing Durant to give them another version of Shaq and Kobe who actually get along. I mean, how much different is that than the Lakers drafting Kobe and signing Shaq as a free agent, kind of Jerry West being a genius and being able to kind of not circumvent the cap rules, but like figure out the salary cap ahead of everybody else, right? Like, what's the real difference there? It just so happened that they came at different eras, but it's still, or with the Heat, kind of making everything work to get LeBron, Wade, and Chris Bosh there. Like, It's all the same stuff. Like, if you manage your team properly, whether it's drafting guys or signing guys or trading for guys, you've got a chance to maybe contend for a title. So,
right.
I can understand why people are frustrated by the Warriors being so good and having everything kind of fall into place with the cap and the cap spike and Steph being hurt early. So, like, they got very lucky, but you have to be lucky to be good. And, at some point you just have to kind of sit back and go, all right, well, this is the way it is now for a while. And, I don't think the NBA has ever been in a better place personally.
Yeah.
So I think, for people might want to be frustrated about how good Golden State is, but there's a hell of a lot of fun teams to watch. And even if Golden State is the best team for a couple of years, I don't see the interest in the NBA going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, the Warriors, they're so light years ahead of everybody else that they really understood that they needed to overcome a 3-1 deficit against the Thunder, then blow a 3-1 lead, lose a championship,
right.
And in the same year where the salary cap jumped because the players wouldn't take smoothing. I mean, wow, that is light years ahead.
Right. Right.
So.
It took 50 different things to fall into place properly for them to land Kevin Durant, So, like, sometimes teams just get super lucky. And they got super lucky, and they already had a bunch of great players anyway. So now they've got maybe the most talented team ever.
Yep.
And so they'll be incredible for a while until they let somebody go because they can't afford them or they just get old. Right. But it's like I said, all I see is more and more people paying attention to the NBA every day. So the people who are bemoaning how this is ruining the league, I don't really agree with that sentiment.
Right. I mean, yeah, they're plugging in McCaw and Bell for Draymond and Clay when they're ready to go, and then they keep going. So, absolutely. Right. And I think it's also incumbent on the other teams. They have to get better. I mean, that's what it is. The Warriors did one move, then you got to do your move to get better. And we'll have to kind of see it. So,
what made me happy about this summer is you saw a lot of teams taking swings. Like, there were a lot of people saying, oh, yeah, teams should just tank and trade guys and try to lose. And I give all these teams credit. Houston, Oklahoma City, Minnesota, great. Boston, go for it. Make a big move. Try to get better. Who knows? If Zaza Pachulia hits Kevin Durant 1 inch higher on his leg last year, his season's over.
Yep.
And I'm not obviously trying to say it'd be great for the league if there's an injury for the Warriors, but look what happened with Gordon Hayward, right? It's not crazy things can happen. Guys can get hurt. There's no reason to just seed the championship and say, Golden State, they're going to win 75 games. Why should we even try? Well, right. Because crazy things happen. So you should put yourself in the best position and then let the chips fall where they may, and maybe it'll work out. I mean, nobody thought the Mavericks were going to beat the Heat in 2011, and everything fell right and they won. Nobody even thought, like you said, you mentioned the Cavs. Nobody thought the Cavs were coming back from 3-1 down, even when Draymond got suspended. But, things started to fall into place. They had a great 3 games and they won a championship. So, I'm really happy that teams didn't just kind of sit and pout and say, well, we don't have a chance. Let's just, keep our powder dry and wait until the Warriors get bored. I think that made for a crazy summer, and I think it's going to make for a really great season.
For sure. And I think this conversation is made for a really great podcast coming on the show. So I can't thank you enough for coming on and breaking that down for us. Great stuff. What are we looking forward to for your next article?
If this is coming out Friday morning, I'll have a big column up on the Greek Freak. I talked to Giannis for a long time today about whether he can win MVP this year or if he's ready to kind of chase that kind of expectation, which he says he is. and Jason Kidd, his coach, said that was a very fair and reasonable expectation for people to have, that he could be the MVP of the league. So all of that, I'll be at Cavs Bucks Friday night. I'll be at Spurs Bulls Saturday. There's just a lot of stuff. I mean, I got a lot of stuff in the hopper ready for it to come out next week. I mean, it's that time of year, We're finally into games. There's a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, the Gordon Hayward thing threw everything up in the air, but I'm just really excited to get a chance to finally watch some meaningful basketball again. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, travel safe, please, and write well. And check him out over at Tim Bontemps at the Washington Post. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Tim?
I'm always in, Coach Nick. Always in.